Hi everyone, my name is Ahana and I work on the scientific research and content for WILD.AI. We've recently introduced some training plans in our app for those who haven't got access to a pool during the pandemic and would still like to maintain their strength and mobility for swimming. So we approached an extremely experienced physiotherapist to help us out with this. And when I say experienced, he's attended 4 Olympic Games, has worked as a consultant with British Swimming, and consults for an international elite swimming club called Energy Standards. Gareth Ziyambi also runs his own private practice, A to Z Elite Health, in central London, and is here to explain the rationale behind his swimming prehab plans, as we call it, for WILD.AI. Welcome, Gareth.
Hi, Sana, and thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure just collaborating with you guys and developing the prehab plans.
Awesome. Okay, so since the plans revolve around swimming, we just wanted to kind of pick your brains on what you think are the most important considerations, especially when it comes to your work and within movement patterns in swimming.
That's a really good question, Sahana, but essentially there are a few points to consider. The first is that we are cleared in a different medium. So whereas for the most part we'll be working in the air, in most other sports, this is clearly happening in the water. So it does mean that the muscles will work in a slightly different way. A second thing is that the arms are what's being used as the main factors in generating propulsion, whereas in other sports, a lot of it is generated by the legs. So it necessarily means we have to ensure that the arms are able to, one, have the range, and two, the strength that they need to generate their propulsion.
Great. Okay. So could you take us through the rationale for the structure of the swimming plans around the biomechanics that you've written for WILD.AI?
Absolutely. So we've divided into 3 categories, which I think would be just to simplify things as much as possible, but also to make sure we're covering all the bases. So the first one is mobility. And this really is about looking at the ability of the joint to move through the entire ranges of motion. If we're looking at the shoulder joint, for instance, you have to have big ranges of motion in order to be able to complete your strokes. And what we want to make sure is that there's enough range that's available for that to happen. And we look then at the actual joint itself and the joint capsule and maybe the ligaments around the joint. Are they loose enough to allow you to do what you need to do? The second point really is stability. Once we've got the range, we need to make sure those joints are stable. And by that, it may be the muscles that are going to contract to stabilize the joint during the movement. And this is really important because muscles have different functions. In a simple way, some of them will stabilize the joint and others will produce the movement. And we need an efficient working relationship between the two to generate the propulsion that we need. The last one is about the core, and this one's really related to your streamline. The streamline is really important in swimming because we want to create as little drag, as little resistance as we can with the water as you generate the propulsion. We don't want to increase the workload of the arms, and your core becomes really important at maintaining perfect streamline in the water and reducing the drag. So those are the 3 components: the mobility, the stability, and the core.
All sounds awesome. Also sounds quite hard. So can you tell us a little bit about the intensity of the sessions that you've written in, and also how often our users should be doing them? And also, since they're all quite different, do we kind of have to have any equipment to do those sessions?
Okay, good question. So in terms of the first one, they're designed to be a foundation, a preparation for everything that you're going to do in your normal training sessions. So the answer to that is that the intensity is actually really low. It's enough for you to be able to do the exercises and then continue on to doing your normal training. It's one of the reasons we call it prehabilitation. It's kind of priming the muscles and the joints for the functions that you need to do so that they don't reduce the risk of injury, in other words. In terms of the frequency, in order to get the changes that we need, we recommend that you do these at least 4 times a week, but a maximum of 5. So either 4 or 5 times a week, because we do recommend a rest day after every 2 or 3 days, just to allow the whole system to recover. And in terms of equipment, we've tried to make it as simple as possible for you. So you'll just need some exercise bands, you may need some weights, but you could just use a plastic bag with packets of sugar even, and you need about 2 kilos at the most to do that. And in terms of stretching and mobility, maybe an aid such as a foam roller.
Awesome. Okay. So last question, where can we find out more information about you?
Oh, you can find us on social media. We are on Instagram at A to Z Physio, and Facebook also at A to Z Physio. Our website is a2zelitehealth.com. And if you're based in London, we are operating out of Marble Arch. We've got a fantastic facility there. But if you do have questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to do, for those outside of London, video conferences as well, if that would help.
Thanks. Okay, so there you have it. It's a great description of our no pool swimming prehab plans. If you have any other questions about Gareth's plans, please get in touch via our support email, which is support@WILD.AI, or get in touch with us via social media. Thanks a lot.